Story 1. The air on Chestnut Ridge tastes of iron and wet stone. It's a taste I've come to associate with a person gone missing. This time it was a kid named Leo, a college student from somewhere flat and sunny, who thought the Appalachian Trail was a well-paved sidewalk. He'd been gone for 3 days. I'm on the volunteer search and rescue team. Mostly, that means finding hikers with twisted ankles or a bad sense of direction. Sometimes, though, it's like this. The search area expands, hope thins out, and the mountain feels like it's holding its breath. We were setting up a secondary base camp when Silas, a local who's probably older than the trees he fells, ambled over. He spat a stream of tobacco juice near my boot. "Heard you boys are headed up past the Devil's Bathtub," he said, his voice a low rumble like shifting shale. "That's the plan," I replied, checking the straps on my pack. "Grid search from the north slope." Silas nodded slowly, his gaze drifting up to the dense green canopy that swallowed the sky. "You hear anything up there? You be sure what you're hearing." I paused. "What's that supposed to mean?" "This mountain talks," he said, matter-of-factly. "Sometimes it sounds like someone you're looking for. A trick of the wind in the hollows. Makes a man walk in circles till his boots wear through." He looked me dead in the eye. "Mountain takes who it wants. Best not to argue with it." I gave him a tight smile and moved off. Old-timer superstitions. You hear them all the time out here. They're just stories people tell to explain the unexplainable. By midday, I was deep in it. The rest of the team was a half-mile to my west, our radios crackling with intermittent static. The forest floor was a thick carpet of damp, decaying leaves that muffled my footsteps, creating an unnerving silence. The only sounds were my own breathing and the frantic drumming of a woodpecker somewhere unseen. Sunlight struggled to piece the canopy, painting the ground in shifting, disorienting patterns of light and shadow. The isolation began to press in, a physical weight on my shoulders. That's when I heard it. Faint, high-pitched, and cut short by the wind. "Help!" My heart hammered against my ribs. I keyed my radio. "Mark, you copy? I think I have a voice, northeast of my position." The radio hissed. "Say again, Caleb." "Static." "Voice," I shouted into the handset. "Possible victim." I didn't wait for a reply. Protocol could wait. I pushed through a curtain of rhododendron, the slick leaves cold against my face. The sound came again, clearer this time. A young man's voice, strained with panic. "Help me!" It was coming from a steep, rocky ravine choked with fallen logs and shadow. It was off the grid, a place no sane hiker would ever go. But the voice was undeniable. It was Leo. "I'm coming!" I yelled, my voice sounding small against the vastness. "Keep calling." As I scrambled down the slick rocks, a strange feeling pricked the back of my neck. The woodpecker had stopped. The air was perfectly still, heavy and expectant. The smell of rot was stronger here, thick and sweet. "Hello?" I called out, my flashlight beam cutting a nervous swath through the gloom. And the voice answered. But something was wrong. It wasn't a cry for help anymore. It was closer, too close, and it sounded conversational. "Caleb." The words slithered out from the trees to my right. It wasn't the wind. It was a perfect mimic of my own name, spoken in that same strained, desperate tone as the cries for help. I froze, my blood turning to ice water. My hand tightened on the handle of my tactical knife. "Who's there?" I demanded, my voice trembling. A rustle came from my left. Then, from behind me, a whisper. So close, I felt a phantom breath on my ear. "Caleb." It was the same voice, but it was coming from everywhere at once. It was a chorus. It was Leo's voice, but it was also a deeper voice, and a lilting, almost female one, all layered together, echoing through the ravine. They weren't calling for help. They were just saying my name, testing it, tasting it. Silas's words slammed into my mind. "This mountain talks." My survival instinct screamed louder than any voice in the trees. I turned and clawed my way back up the ravine, slipping on loose scree, not daring to look back. The voices followed, a murmuring tide of my own name, twisting and distorting until it was just a sound, a hungry vibration in the air. I burst back onto the ridge, gasping, and ran. I didn't stop until I saw the orange vests of my team through the trees, their mundane chatter the most beautiful sound I had ever heard. They never found Leo. The official report said he likely fell, lost to one of the mountain's countless crevices. But I know better. He wasn't lost. He was found. The mountain heard him calling, and it learned his name. Then it heard me, and it learned mine. I moved away a year later. But sometimes, when the wind blows just right through the eaves of my house, I hear it. A faint, distant whisper calling me back to the trees. Story 2. The air in these mountains tastes old, not just of damp earth and decaying pine, but of something ancient and patient. I'd come here to escape noise, the city's endless shriek, the chatter in my own head after the layoff. I'd picked a lesser-known trail in the Pisgah National Forest, a thin green line on a map that promised little more than switchbacks and solitude. My first 3 days were exactly that. The rhythmic crunch of my boots on the trail, the burn in my thighs, the cathedral quiet of the old-growth forest. It was a baptism of silence. On the 4th day, I found the glove. It was a single child-sized mitten, knitted from pink wool, lying half-buried in the mud a good 20 feet off the trail. It looked out of place, a tiny splash of manufactured color in the riot of organic green and brown. I almost picked it up, but a strange reluctance stayed my hand. It felt like disturbing a grave marker. I left it there. That night, things began to shift. The familiar symphony of the woods, the chirr of crickets, the hoot of a distant owl, was punctuated by a new sound. A soft, rhythmic clicking, like someone tapping 2 stones together. It seemed to come from all directions at once, a sound that slipped between the trees, impossible to pinpoint. I told myself it was a woodpecker, or some strange insect. But the sound followed the setting of the sun, and it had a deliberate, almost conversational cadence that made the hairs on my arms stand up. The next morning, I packed up camp under a heavy, oppressive fog. The world had shrunk to a 50-foot circle of gray. As I shouldered my pack, I heard it. A voice, whispering my name. Jacob. It was faint, carried on the damp air, and it sounded exactly like my ex-wife, Sarah. My heart hammered against my ribs. I spun around, peering into the soupy mist. "Sarah?" I called out, my voice sounding thin and foolish. Silence. Then, from a different direction, closer this time. "Jacob, help me." My logical mind screamed at me. "Sarah's in Chicago. It's the wind. You're tired. You're alone. Your brain is playing tricks." But the sound was so perfect. The exact pitch of her voice when she was frightened. I unclipped the bear spray from my pack, my hands slick with sweat. The clicking sound started again, faster this time, closer. It sounded less like stones now, and more like chattering teeth. I forced myself onto the trail, practically running. The fog was a winding sheet, and the path twisted and turned, making me feel as though I were moving in circles. Every snap of a twig, every rustle of leaves, was a harbinger. The whispering continued, intermittent. Sometimes it was Sarah. Once, chillingly, it was my father's voice, a man who'd been dead for 10 years. It never said anything complex, just my name, or a plea for help, always seeming to come from just off the trail, from behind a thicket of rhododendron or a moss-covered boulder. I stumbled into a small clearing and saw the sign nailed to a tree. It was a missing person flyer, the paper warped and peeling from the rain. A smiling, freckle-faced girl named Lily Patterson, age 9, last seen near this trail 2 years ago. She was wearing a pink coat. A cold dread coiled in my gut. The pink mitten. That's when I heard the giggle. A little girl's laugh, echoing through the fog-drenched trees. It was the most innocent sound in the world, and the most terrifying thing I had ever heard. It came from the direction of a steep, treacherous-looking ravine, far from the marked path. "Come find me, Jacob," the little girl's voice whispered, impossibly close to my ear. I didn't answer. I remembered a story my grandfather, who'd grown up in these hills, used to tell me, about things in the deep woods that learned the voices of the lost, things that called to you, using the sounds you loved and trusted to lure you off the path, into places you could never come back from. "Never answer a voice you can't see," he'd said, his face grim. "And never, ever follow." I turned and ran. I didn't care about the trail. I just crashed through the undergrowth, branches whipping at my face, my lungs burning. Behind me, the voices multiplied. Sarah crying, my father calling my name, the little girl laughing, all woven together with that incessant chattering click. It wasn't a haunting. It felt biological, predatory, a mimicry designed to exploit the deepest parts of a person. I didn't stop until my legs gave out and I tumbled onto the gravel of a fire road. I lay there, gasping, the taste of blood in my mouth. The sounds were gone. There was only the wind in the pines and the frantic beating of my own heart. I don't know how long I walked that road, but eventually, blessedly, it led to a highway. I'm back in the city now, surrounded by noise, but it's no longer a comfort. Sometimes in the dead of night, when the traffic dies down, I think I can hear it. A faint, clicking sound, just at the edge of hearing. And I lie awake in the dark, wondering how many voices it has learned, and how many mittens lie scattered in the deep, patient woods of the Appalachians.